Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm author, leadership, and team development speaker Joe Woodley, and this is another Key Moments for Faith. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me on today's episode. Before we go any further, make sure you take the time to go down and click on the subscription box down at the bottom of the screen. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video, like other videos on this channel. Share it with your friends, your family, your neighbors, the guy down the street and around the corner, and even your enemies. And they may just happen to become your friends. Also, take a look at the description box where you're certainly sure to find something. You're going to find something there to help you on this journey we call faith. Guys, I want to really encourage you to listen to this particular episode. This is actually going to be a twofer. I'm going to be covering two topics in this particular episode. Two topics that are kind of really near and dear to my heart. The first topic I'm going to be talking about is in regards to getting your health together as Christians and the importance behind that. And then the second topic I'm going to be talking about is loving your neighbors and the importance of blessing those who curse you. It's two big topics there. So the first topic, as I said, I'm going to be talking about getting your health in order. And this is a really important topic because, as you guys know, and hopefully you guys are coming to terms with the fact that COVID is not going anywhere. It's going to continue to change. There's going to be new variants that will come out multiple times out of the year. Same thing with flu and other viruses and bacteria and diseases and all that stuff. And I think it's important that we talk about an issue that is not really being discussed throughout much of the mainstream media, and that's the importance of getting your health in order. Now, let me make this clear. I do believe in the power of prayer. I've said this on numerous episodes. I have this conversation with many individuals that I come into contact with, but I've seen miraculous things happen in my life. I've experienced them. I've seen them with friends of mine and, neighbors and associates. And I'm well versed in miracles, signs, and wonders. That's nothing brand new to me. I believe in that. At the same time, I also believe that it's important that believers take their health more seriously and the health of their family members and of their community far more seriously. Let's pray for our health and well-being. Let's meditate on the word, and let's make sure we're putting the right things in our bodies to ensure that we are treating our bodies like the temples that they are. Years ago, I was really into lifting and working out, still am. But I was, into a lot of the powerlifting stuff. But my diet for a number of years was pretty poor. I just ate whatever I could eat to put the calories in my body. And that helped to lead to some health conditions and some health situations that were really unfortunate. And it left me exposed to things that I was not really thinking about. Because I thought as long as I'm in the gym working out, then what's the big deal? I can pretty much eat whatever, particularly in my 20s. You're eating, you're consuming a huge amount of food. And at the time that I was really into it, I was big into getting as big as I possibly could. My heroes at the time were people like Ronnie Coleman, and Jay Cutler and people like that, and Dennis James, and the list goes on, because I just wanted to get as big as I could possibly get. But I was also compromising my health Let me share some statistics with you guys that I think is really important to bring some clarity to the importance of your health. What's happened here with COVID, what's going on with COVID, as well as with other diseases. Because the truth is the truth. If you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not ensuring that your body is treated in a way that is respectful, you will leave yourself exposed to all sorts of environmental risks. And I don't want to see that happen to you. But they do have statistics, and there are statistics on the people who are primarily endangered or primarily at risk from not just COVID, but from other diseases. And I think we really need to make this clear. We really need to begin to emphasize this, because all the talk that we see on the news is all about just get the vaccine, get the vaccine, get the vaccine, and do this and do that and avoid people and all that stuff. But we don't see anybody talking about the importance of losing weight. We don't see anybody talking about the importance of proper supplementation. We don't see anybody talking about cardiovascular activity, through whether it's being on a treadmill or elliptical or glider or a rower or something like that, or even taking a walk outside. We don't see those types of conversations. Everything is always about prescription, some type of prescription medication or whatever. And that's not good, because we have become too reliant on prescription medications. And the result of that is that we are reducing our personal ability, because all of us have been given a God-given ability to heal and to recover and to be restored and to fight bacteria and viruses. But because of some of the ways that we have decided to treat ourselves, we have left ourselves vulnerable. Several years ago, and many of you know this, that I was, really ill. And upon coming out of the hospital, I was on a ton of medications. I think I was taking somewhere around 12 to 14 different medications. I was pumping into my body every day. I mean, pill after pill after pill. Pills for reducing my blood pressure, pills for relaxing my blood vessels, pills for, as diuretics, pills that were anticoagulants, pills for, you name it. I mean, I was on so many different meds, and it was so debilitating. I had to remain active, because the moment I sat down, I doze off. It was almost narcoleptic because of how much medication I was putting in my body and the types of medications I was putting in my body. And I don't want to live that way. As a matter of fact, when I came out of the hospital, I was in such bad shape I couldn't even do a push-up. Not one single push-up. And you're talking to a person who had been physically active at that point for well over 20 years. Being in a gym and fitness was my life. And to come out and I couldn't even do a push-up, couldn't do a sit-up. I could barely walk up a flight of steps. I was in bad shape. And I knew I needed to do something about it, and I was determined to do something about it. And so I made the necessary commitments to do what I needed to do to reduce my reliance on those medications. And so as I went through cardiac rehab at the time, because like I said, I ended up having 2 stents put in, and I was having kidney issues, and it just was just like I said, I was just an absolute mess. They pulled about 20 pounds of water out of my body. So I went in and I wasn't allowed to go to the gym for a while, but I would go over to the cardiac rehab, and I went through that process. And because I was disciplined and diligent, The rehab specialists were stunned. My doctors were shocked. I have doctors still to this day who tell me that they're shocked that I'm alive today because I was in such bad shape. I was in such poor health. Mind you, at that time, if I had gotten COVID, I would have probably been gone. I mean, because I was in that poor of health. And the truth is, most of the people who are dying from COVID infections are in poor health and they're older. Those are just the facts. This is not to fat shame anybody. This is to tell you what's going on. Most of the people in our society who are suffering from a lot of medical issues, things they call comorbidities, are because of the fact that they have not taken care of themselves. Their diet are improper, lack of exercise, physical activity, and then maybe for some individuals, there may be some hormonal issues, but all of those things need to be addressed. And as I said, as believers, it's important for us to represent the light and the love of God in such a way that it draws people to Christ. But if you're beat up and worn out, who are you attracting? You're beat up, worn out, and you can't function. That makes no sense at all. And we should strive to be better than that. And so, as I worked hard and worked diligently, they were able to reduce my medication, begin to reduce my medications down over a period of time. I still prayed, trusted the Lord, got my blood pressure under control at that time, and I was doing well for a period of time. And then early in 2020, my pressure started acting really funky again. Really funky. I was like, this is crazy, man. I didn't know what was going on. I had suffered an injury at work. And so this was right before the lockdown kicked in. And, like I said, I could not, no matter what I did, could not seem to get my blood pressure under control. It was wacky. I believe that some of that was because of stress and things that were happening in my life. And so all that kind of contributed to what was going on. And I knew that I needed to get hold of what was going on. I needed to be even more determined. Because, there were some things I had let slide and I wasn't as diligent. And so I got serious. Really, really serious about my health and well-being. And so I was, trained like crazy, as far as trying to, get weight off of me and all those things. Because again, these are comorbidities and I wanted to address the issue. And I struggled to get the weight off. I think in part because I have trained for so many years, with lifting and everything else. And my body, I look at a weight and I put on size. I don't have to increase what I'm eating. As a matter of fact, I don't eat anywhere near as much as I used to eat in my 20s. I'm consuming somewhere around between 2,400 and 3,000 calories a day. And that's the truth. And people see me, they're like, there's no way in the world. You got to be eating way more than that. No, as you get older, you really don't need to eat as much. You don't. Your body will hold on to the mass much easier. But I struggled. I had real issues with trying to do that. And again, part of it was the injury I had suffered and, being able to do cardio the way that I really wanted to do. So I was doing cardio, but there were certain things that I was not able to do as much of. And so I decided earlier this year to get that much more serious about it. I spoke to my doctors and we were discussing what we needed to do to alleviate some of the inflammation in my body, because my body was holding on to inflammation. It's part of the reason why my blood pressure was acting really funky. They kind of figured that out. So some inflammation in my body, my kidneys, my joints, all that stuff, inflammation in my muscles, What do we need to do to deal with this? And so initially they recommended that I consider becoming a vegetarian, or become a vegan. And I was not having that. I'm not quite ready for that. So my personal doctor talked about that, as well as another doctor. And actually, all three of my doctors talked about me considering doing this. And so I wasn't ready for that, but we came up with a compromise. And the compromise was that I was going to become a pescatarian. I made that decision. I did the research on it. I didn't just jump into it. I wanted to make sure that I was going to get the appropriate amount of nutrients into my body, because that meant that I really wasn't eating red meat anyway. I really wasn't. I was avoiding a lot of that stuff. I avoided it. It was very rare that I have some red meat. Most of my diet was basically chicken. But becoming a pescatarian meant that I was no longer going to be eating chicken. No chicken, no pork, no red meat, no fowl, none of that stuff. It just meant I was going to be eating seafood. And I did the research to see what I needed to do, what type of supplementation I needed to bring along with my diet to ensure that I was able to maintain that diet. And you know what? The first week, I'm not going to lie, I wanted a piece of chicken, and I got me a piece of chicken that first week. And then I thought to myself, I said, Joe, you want to be serious about this, man, you got to get disciplined. You need to be disciplined. You need to be focused. And you need to make a decision here. Is your life worth it? Because you can't continue having your blood pressure up and down and all over the map, and you're tired and worn out because your body's acting funky and all this other stuff, and I had to make a decision. And guys, we have to make decisions as believers. Now, I'm not saying that this is the exact route that you need to be going. I think you need to consult with your healthcare professional and ask them what's a good diet for you. But for me, it worked. And I don't ever go into the doctor now concerned about what my blood pressure is going to look like. Oh man, like, Lord God, I hope that my blood pressure is where it needs to be. And I'm just praying about, like, my blood pressure has remained stable for months since I did make the decision to become a pescatarian. I do supplement that, so I take like multivitamins. I do magnesium. I do L-carnitine. I do zinc as well, and some other things. So I do supplement my body. I don't do anything that's unnatural at all, or any products in my body that are unnatural. I eat relatively clean. Most of the time, if I'm eating fish, if I want to fry it, they have a vegetarian or vegan butter that you can use, and I'll use that, or I'll use avocado oil, or those types of things. So with doing that, I have not had any time where I have worried about COVID or the flu or any of those things. I have been actually healthier than I have been in years. This is even before I got sick. Healthier, my skin is clearer, my mind is sharper. I have more energy sometimes when I'm, talking to friends of mine. There's a buddy of mine that I visit, usually every week. And I'll sit there and he's like, dude, you got like so much energy. Like, what is going on? And I'm maintaining muscle mass. I'm not, I don't do whey protein or anything like that. I do like a pea protein because the pea protein isn't harsh on my kidneys. Whey protein, particularly if you have kidney issues, can really cause damage or furthering of damage, and so I avoid that. But my buddy's like, dude, like, we're sitting there talking. He's like, man, you got like so much energy, like you just look better. It has made a tremendous impact in my life. So here's the statistics, okay, and why we need to be doing this, guys. Because as I said before, COVID is not going away, but neither is the flu or anything else. And, quite frankly, we have a responsibility to make sure that the bodies God has given us, we're managing those things well. So here's the truth. 50% of people who died from COVID, some of the comorbidities were hypertension. This is off of the CDC website. I'm not making this up. This is the CDC website. Hypertension, lipid metabolism, obesity, well over 30% of people, diabetes, over 30% of people, heart disease. You go down the list, even depressive disorders, people are, sleep disorders, those sorts of things. Those are a little bit lower in the list. But things that we can do something about are what's taking people out of here. And obviously the majority of people, over 70% of the people who have died from COVID-related illnesses or whatever, they were over 80 years old. You don't hear the news talking about that. They talk about, oh my God, all these people who are dying, the majority of them were older. And it doesn't mean that we should overlook them. But we need to put some things in context here. But because we know that this particular illness is not going anywhere, because we know the flu is not going anywhere, because these same numbers can be applied to all of them. The same numbers can be applied to the flu. The same numbers can be applied to numerous illnesses and diseases that are afflicting our society right now. And as a person who is a believer, it's imperative. It really bothers me. And it can be quite upsetting to see individuals who are not taking care of themselves, always getting sick. Something's going on with their body. Something's going on with their health. Always some sort of an issue going on. There's a buddy of mine who used to work for Social Security, and I remember him telling me years ago, I still remember this conversation. He's like, most of the people that come in here, their issues would be resolved if they lost weight. I mean, he's like, it's so noticeable. You're 100, 200, 300 pounds overweight. Yes, you are probably going to have some major complications from COVID, the flu, whatever's out there. You got to get serious about taking care of your health. Those of you who are ministers and you're preaching the gospel, or you're ministering, or you're evangelizing, you got to get serious about your health. Struggling to get up and minister to people and to share the gospel because, you're wheezing and all that stuff is going on, or you get tired easily while you're up there preaching, or you're sharing the word because you're not taking care of yourself. It's important to get in there, get in the gym, do some cardio. If you don't have a gym, get to the park. Do some cardiovascular activity. Find some way to add some sort of resistance training to it. The last time I went in for my blood pressure was 120 over 70. 120 over 70. And you're talking about, I was at a point early last year, that would be in 2020, where I had numbers like 164 over 90 and all this crazy numbers. I mean, my blood work and everything had gotten like way out of whack, and I needed to rein it in, pull it in. And it's not a one size fits all in regards to dieting, except for avoiding things that are highly processed. You want to stay away from those things. But I'm concerned about the number of believers, that are struggling with some of these issues, struggling with their health. And, we go in and we pray for you, and we're praying and we're believing God and we're laying on hands and all this stuff. And that's important. But you got to take personal responsibility too. It's like, someone who has, let's say, diabetes. And we're praying for you to get healed from diabetes, but you're drinking 2 liters of soda a day. It's not going to cut it. You're drinking 2 liters of soda a day, but you're believing God's going to heal you of diabetes. No, you got to take personal responsibility, and you need to make some changes. God, I want to lose weight, but you're eating, pizza 3-4 times a week. Guess what? You're probably not going to lose weight. You're not going to get any leaner, or at least get leaner and lose body fat. Not going to happen because you're consuming the wrong types of calories. You're putting the wrong fuel in your body. I'm afraid that I might get COVID and die, but you're 100 pounds overweight. You got to take personal responsibility. So here's some 5 key points, and we're going to move on to the next topic. So you really want to get serious about taking care of your health as a believer. And this should be a concern for all of us, as we have seen brothers and sisters of ours all over the place, particularly within the Western world, because Africa and Asia are not having the same issues as we are. Look up the numbers yourself. Africa and Asia are not having the same numbers in regards to the flu and COVID and all that stuff as we are here in the United States and in Europe and Australia. Why is that? Number one, because of their diet. They don't eat all of the garbage that we're eating. So if they don't eat all the garbage, they're far more physically active than we are. So they don't have the comorbidities that we do. So when these things come along, they're able to fight them off much easier. They don't have the vaccination rates that we have. And they're still doing far better than we are. Because we have to be reliant on these medications. Because we're not taking care of ourselves. I'm going down from 12 to 14 medications down to 5. As a matter of fact, the last one was reduced. One doctor was saying, I don't know about this because they're so used to keeping you on medications. But when they saw how well I'm doing physically and with my health, they had to release me from that medication. It was having all kinds of negative effects on me. But they released me from it because I got serious about my health. Yes, I prayed, but I also took personal responsibility. So number one, I would encourage you guys to find an accountability partner to help you out, to make sure that you are staying on track with your health. Someone to go to the gym with you. Someone to make sure that you're eating the right foods. Not somebody who's going to be a dictator, but they're going to walk with you through the process. So that if and when you fall off track, they're there to pick you up and say, let's keep it going. Don't give up. So you need an accountability partner. You do need to be praying. I believe in that, and I believe in the power of prayer. You need to be disciplined. You need to be disciplined. You need to have a plan in place. And if you don't have a plan in place, find someone who can help create a plan for you that you can follow so that you know exactly what you need to be doing each day. So it's not guesswork. They need to take the guess out of it. So I'm eating at this time, or I'm eating these meals today, or I'm going to be getting this type of workout in. So that's important. So accountability partner, prayer, have a plan in place, and then follow through. And don't give up. Do not give up. When you fall, get back up, keep it going. And do the research and find out what's going to work for you. And I almost forgot the other part of the plan. Talk to your doctor. Okay, so we're going to talk about our second topic for this particular episode. And I think this is another topic that is near and dear to my heart. Really important. Really, really, really important topic. Because social media is a minefield of exploitation and negativity, and people sometimes do things on there and say things on there that they really shouldn't, especially those of us who are believers. I've seen posts on there where quite frankly, many times we say things we shouldn't be saying, and we act out in ways that we shouldn't be acting. And our responsibility and our job as believers is to share the gospel. Share the gospel with our words and with our deeds. And to be quite frank, there are people out there who are not going to like what you believe or what you stand for. But again, that's where our responsibilities as believers kick in. Because ultimately, we're representing the kingdom and not ourselves. And too many of us are focused in on ourselves and how we feel and what we want and all of those things. And it can be easy. It's easy to get frustrated when people say things to you or treat you in ways that they shouldn't because you are a believer. I had a conversation with someone. I put something up the other week, and some individuals attacked me online, and they sent me private messages, and they were saying some horrific things. Some people were just like flat out cussing at me. My response was not to start cussing back at them and to call them names and to say how horrible their mama was or is and where's your daddy and all that kind of stuff. That was not my response, nor should it have been. Because Jesus makes it very clear that we are responsible for representing the kingdom. And we don't want to put ourselves in a position where we're fighting each other based on each other's egos, which is what happens a lot of times. You hurt my feelings, you bruised my ego, and so now I'm going to go on the offensive. That's not the way to do things. Here in Luke, the 6th chapter, the 27th verse, this is Jesus, and he's giving a lesson here on loving your enemies. And Jesus made it very clear. He said that if you love me, they're going to hate you. Made it very clear. The world is not going to love you if you love Christ, because the teachings of Christ, the Word of God, is the exact opposite of how the world sees things, and the way the world views life, and the way the world behaves. It has a completely different worldview. And so Jesus made it very clear that that's going to happen. But he also made it clear that there's a way that we're to respond when we are under attack, or when people don't agree with us, or when people mistreat us, or dare I say, when people curse you. Cursing you doesn't mean that somebody's just casting a spell, because, there are witches and warlocks and people that believe in that, and they do spells. But it could be someone saying something to you that's not kind, calling you out of your name, saying that you are a loser or a bum or whatever foul thing they can come up with. Loving your enemies can be difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. It can be difficult when people do things to hurt you intentionally. I'm not talking about individuals who do things and they're oblivious to what's going on. But when people know what they're doing and they intentionally hurt you, that can be hard. But you still gotta love them anyway. Loving people does not mean that what they did to you is fine and that it's okay. Loving them means that you're going to share God's love and his goodness with them, regardless of what they say, regardless of how they act. It does not necessarily mean that you've reconciled a relationship. But if every time I'm in the presence of someone, I get a sick feeling in my stomach because of something they did to me in the past, or I get angry, or bitterness comes over me, or I don't have the best thoughts toward them, then I need to really go before the throne and ask God to work some things out in me. because that's not his will for my life. That's not his will for their lives, that ill will come against them. So we need to work those things out. So I hope you got a pen and paper together for this particular section. I am not going to take much longer with this particular video. But I think it's important that we talk about this, because I've seen some stuff, whether it's about COVID or other issues that Christians, we may be passionate about, COVID, abortion, certain rights, gay rights, all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes I see things that believers we put on that make me cringe, to be quite frank, because some of us really need to ask God to wash our mouths and to clean up our hands with the things that we post online. Because some of the things that we put online are not godly. They're not in alignment with God's plan. And quite frankly, they make people question whether or not you are actually a true believer. Because Jesus wouldn't respond in a way that many of us respond. And I know you're saying, well, that was Jesus and I'm me, and I'm a work in progress. Yeah, we're all works in progress. But if I know that what I'm getting ready to say, is not godly, and I'm putting some forethought into that, I need to back up for a minute and, really ask God to zip my lips until he gives me the words to say, so that I don't say something that causes somebody to stumble or pushes them away from the kingdom permanently. Because then I'm going to be held accountable for that, just as you would. So we need to be mindful of that. Luke 6 chapter 27 verse says, but I say, this is Jesus speaking, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who spitefully use you. And what does Jesus say? Don't treat them the way that they would treat you. Don't lie on them the way that they would lie to you. Don't cuss them out like they would cuss you out. Don't beat them up like they would beat you up. You have a responsibility, because the God in you has a higher standard. Yeah, the God in you has a higher standard. And that standard is not to lower yourself to debasing people and to denying the Christ that's in you. Verse 29, to him who strikes you on the one cheek, offer the other also. And from him who takes away your cloak, do not withhold your tunic either. Give to everyone who asks you. And from him who takes away your goods, do not ask them back. And just as you want men to do to you, you also do to them likewise. Now, Jesus is not saying let people run all over you and kick dirt in your face while you're down. Really, what he is saying is treat people with respect, even the people that you disagree with. I've had conversations with people, and like I said, I told you, I've had conversations with people have cussed me out online, or they say all sorts of terrible things. Or maybe I'm at the job, or I'm at an event, and people will say things to me that can be quite horrific. Even other believers. It's not just people in the world. Even other believers. And I'm not going to allow somebody to walk all over me. And Jesus isn't saying that here. What he's saying is you still treat them like you want to be treated. Or better yet, like God treats you. Because do we always honor God with our words? No. None of us does. Do we always honor God with our actions? Not one single man or woman on this planet does. Do we always honor God with our thoughts? No way. But does God turn his back on us? He never does. So when people dishonor us, or they're not honorable, when people don't have the best thoughts about us, when people say things that they should not say, if we're saying that we're trying to be Christ-like, that is the standard, then we cannot look at those individuals and say that you're not deserving of God's love. You're not deserving of God's forgiveness. You're not deserving of his grace. Again, it doesn't mean that relationship is reconciled, but you got to be able to let go of that so that you can treat them in the way that they should be treated, because God treats you the way that he believes you should be treated, even when you turn your back on him. Verse 32, but if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? It's easy to love people who treat you well. It's easy to be kind to people who are always smiling in your face. It's easy to be respectful to people who are respectful to you. It's easy to extend a hand to someone who extends a hand back toward you. It's easy to do those things. It says here, but for even sinners love those who love them. Like, that's not a big deal. Like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? I helped that brother out. So what? You have a great relationship. You should help out your brother and your sister in Christ. What's the big deal about that? He's saying, and if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Just like I said. Wow. Like, what's the big deal? For even sinners do the same. Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you hope to receive back, what credit is that? If you're giving to somebody who can always only give back to you. Now, I know people who will only give to people who can give back to them. That's it. If you have nothing to offer, and I've heard this comment made by believers, which is very unfortunate. Maybe it's not meant in this way, but it sure does come across that way. That if someone can't give back to you just as much as you can give to them, then you need to find some new friends to hang out with. That's ridiculous. That is not Christ-like, because Jesus was always around people who could not pay in kind. Always. I mean, my goodness, he laid down his life for the world. The world couldn't do that in kind. The world couldn't do that in kind. But here it is. We have these rules that we have in place. I'm not going to give you $1 if you can't pay me back. I'm not going to buy you a sandwich if you can't give me a sandwich. I'm not going to loan you my car if you're not going to loan me yours. I'm not going to do this. So we have this bartering system, and we have these unrealistic expectations. And then we say, I'm being Christ-like because I helped out my brother. You should help your brother out. You should give to your sister. You should be kind to them. But what about those individuals who are not in that particular space, who don't have that ability? The brother who is in a financial situation where he can't pay you back, and he may never pay you back. Or are you going to deny him? Oh, you know what I'm saying? Well, y'all ain't on my level anymore. You ain't on my level because I make too much for you. Or I'm only going to be friends with this person over there because they're where I want to be. Be friends with them, but also be friends with a brother who's not where you want to be. Treat the person who is a multimillionaire the same way you treat the person who's impoverished. Because that's what Jesus would do. And that's what Jesus did. That's what he did. It says, and if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. And if you lend to those whom you hope to receive back, what credit is that to you? For even sinners lend to sinners to receive much back. But, here's the but, love your enemies. Do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return. In other words, Give to them knowing that you may not get anything back. That person is standing on the street corner. As you pass by, you ignore. You got change in a dashboard, but you won't give it to them. The brother or sister who's at church who's dealing with some issues. You got a closet full of clothes. But you know what? I paid too much money for these clothes. I ain't giving them to nobody. I paid too much money for these clothes. I'm not giving them to anybody. Nice pair of shoes. You got more shoes than you can wear in a day. You got so many shoes that take you a year to wear them. And you see people out there whose shoes are torn up, or kids whose shoes are torn up. Someone struggling to pay their bills. They're working hard. They're working hard, but they just can't quite seem to make it. But you know what? I got this great big house that I'm not giving up my cable bill this month for them. Please. Jesus saying, hold on a minute now. Stop expecting or only relying yourself in relationships with people that you think can hook you up. Stop doing that. For he is kind and thankful. For he is kind to the unthankful, and evil. Therefore be merciful just as your Father also is merciful. Let's go back up a little bit and see what it said again. It said, for even sinners lend. They do the same, right? He said, but verse 35, but love your enemies, do good, and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great. Your reward will be great because you're willing to give, because you're willing to love, not because someone can give something back to you. We treat our relationships almost like job applications. And I've been guilty of that myself in my life. Well, if you can't hook me up over here, then hey, you know what? We don't need to hang out. If you're not on my economic level, then we don't need to hang out because you can't pay for dinner sometime, or you can't give for that, or you can't do that. So we're not going to even hang out. I don't even want to associate with you because you're not on my economic class. You're not in my stature or up to my stature. And Jesus is saying, enough with that. He said, if you give to people just because, God's going to bless you. If you love people just because, even the people who treat you poorly, the people who don't have the highest regard for you, treat them like God treats you. Because what did we just say earlier? You don't always treat God the way he deserves to be treated and honor him the way he needs to be honored. You don't always praise God the way you should praise him. Your thoughts aren't always pure and holy. Your actions aren't as pure as the driven snow. We all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and yet and still God treats us as his sons and daughters, not as bastard kids, not as homeless kids. He says, you're my son, you're my daughter, regardless of what has happened, and I still love you. And Jesus is saying, this is how we are to treat those who despise us, those who don't respect us, or those who don't hold us in high regard. Because that's what it means to love with the love of God. It says, therefore be merciful just as your Father is also merciful. Show mercy as your Father in heaven is merciful toward you. Someone makes a mistake, we want to just dog them out, put them down, put them out in the doghouse. They're done. It's over with. It's over for them. Their purpose, their mission is gone. God has turned his back on them. We start speaking all types of, I'll never be this, I'll never be that. You say, hold on. Just a minute. The Father in heaven's been merciful toward you when you were acting a fool, when you were straight tripping. He didn't turn around and say, well, it's over for you, so see ya. Cast him in a lake of fire. That's the end of that. He didn't do that. He said, son, daughter, here's an opportunity to get it right. I'm still blessing you. I didn't kick you out of your house. I didn't treat. Now you may have made decisions that put you in a position where you weren't able to live where you want to live and do the things you want to do. But that's not God's doing. That's you. And say the Father's always merciful. The Father's always kind. Even to people who are unthankful and even to people who are evil. How about that? We don't like talking about that. Like people talk, oh, the mark of God is good is when everything is going right in my life. Well, I'm sorry, there's a whole lot of multimillionaires and billionaires out there whose hearts are not right, and God still blesses them. He blesses the just and the unjust. And if your Father in heaven is willing to do that, how much more will He do for you? Don't set your relationships and your heart on things and people just because they can give you the hookup. Just because you think they can help you get somewhere. Just because they can pay you back or they can do something for you. Give regardless of whether someone can give to you or not. Love someone whether they can love you or have the capacity to love you in the same way. Share with someone who is incapable of sharing in the same way. Be kind to someone who may be dealing with some difficulties in life and they don't know how to express themselves in an appropriate way. Love the person who has betrayed you, who has hurt you, who may have deceived you, whatever else. Still treat them with kindness and love because that's what believers do. 5 points. And I'm going to let you guys go. Number 1. Your freedom is dependent on your ability to forgive. Your freedom. Your freedom is not theirs, yours. If you can't forgive people and treat people with respect, that doesn't mean that the relationship is somehow reconciled. That's another step. But if every time you see that person, you get a blister, you have a breakout, you need to go to the Lord and really get that thing straightened out. You need to go to that person and release that. Number 2, revenge is the sustenance of hatred. Every time you do, because someone has hurt you, now you want to hurt them. They said something to you. Now you want to say something back to them. And I said, like all the stuff that goes on online. People say things and they go back and forth and they say some of the most vile and disgusting and despicable things online. These are believers. People who profess to be believers. That's not godly. And all you're doing is you're feeding hatred. We get into the sectarianism where it's believer against believer or believer against unbeliever and all this other stuff. That's not God. Number 3, you cannot reach those who you refuse to engage with. We got a whole world out there, people who don't know the Lord, and we refuse to engage with them in a godly manner. Some people we just won't engage with at all. I have met believers, and it is stunning to me, as good as God has been to you, you don't even want to talk to them. You don't want to talk to them because they're not on your level spiritually. They're not on your level spiritually, so you don't want to even have a conversation with them. What's going on here? What if God said, you know what? You straight acted a fool, so I'm going to give you the silent treatment. Jesus is making it very clear here. You have to engage with people. You know what love is? Love is engagement. It's interaction. That's what love is. Engagement and interaction. You're choosing to do it in spite of the way the person is treating you, in spite of the way that they're acting. Whether they pay you back or not, you're still going to love them. We always put all these prerequisites in there and I'm not going to help them out because I'm tired of helping people. I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of doing that. No, love them regardless. Number 4, it's not about you. It's not all about you. It's about the kingdom. You love people because God loved you so much. I've said this in numerous broadcasts. God has been so good to me. I can't help but to talk about his goodness. I just can't help it. He's healed my body. He saved me from almost certain death. He has restored me. He has blessed me in numerous ways. Oh, I got a roof over my head, clothes on my back, shoes on my feet. I got hair on my head. I got the ability to see, to hear, to touch, to taste. God has blessed me in so many different ways. When I was laying up in that hospital bed years ago, God was still good. Thank you, God, for this opportunity to be here. It turned into a ministry opportunity, just sharing God's goodness with the staff. God was still good then. It wasn't all about me. It's not all about you. It's about sharing the goodness of God, bringing others to know Jesus, to sit at the feet of Jesus. That's what it needs to be about. If you keep that in mind, you're not going to cuss people out online when they cuss you out. You're not going to find something to demean a person and to cut them down, whether they agree with you or not. And that's like I said, I've had people say some pretty horrific things toward me, and I will not respond in kind. Why? Because God has been so good to me. He has. He's been too good to me, and I can't afford to act a fool because somebody feels that it's more important to get their point across. They feel it's more important that they be right. No, it's more important that the kingdom is shared. Final point, love is the solution, not the problem. Love your enemies. Love your enemies. Love them into loving Jesus. And God bless each and every one of you. I'm author, leadership, and team development speaker Joe Woodley. This has been another Key Moments for Faith. Again, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Share this video with your friends, your family, and neighbors. The God that's right around the corner, even your enemies. They may just happen to become your friends. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all here again soon on another Key Moments of Faith. God bless you.